Hey, Vlad here, devinside.com. Welcome to another video. In the previous video, we talked about Bloop, which is a build server for Scala, and among other things, for its console command, it uses Ammonite, which is a wonderful Scala REPL, and more. I mentioned that I wanted to make a video about it, and here it is. So let's get right to it. What I have here is my Ubuntu 18.04 virtual machine, which we're going to use to install and play around with Ammonite. And by the way, I'm getting started myself with Ammonite, so this is why this video is called Getting Started, and it's not even a crash course. So take everything that I say about it with a grain of salt. One of the first things that you need to know about Ammonite is that it doesn't work under Windows. So I'm using a virtual machine myself, but if I switch to my other virtual desktop in Windows, and as you can see, I'm in the browser and we're at ammonite.io, and I clicked on Ammonite REPL, so we are at this ID, Ammonite-REPL. If we switch to features, which is the next section, and scroll up just a little bit, the last section will say that Ammonite REPL does not support Windows, even though Ammonite Ops does. So see, there's essentially there's a GitHub discussion which basically says that if you're using the Windows subsystem for Linux, then you might actually get it working. Now, Ammonite Ops is just a Scala library that you can use, which basically gives you a bunch of utilities to access the file system. And so another thing over here is the Ammonite shell. So Ammonite shell is basically like another version of the Ammonite REPL, whereas the Ammonite REPL concentrates on just being a better Scala REPL. Ammonite shell tries to replace your entire bash or your entire ZSH shell. And we're not going to talk about this today, right? So the Ammonite shell basically uses this Ammonite Ops library. But again, Ammonite Ops is just a library, so you can use it in any Scala or technically even maybe Java project, but you're probably going to run into issues there. Anyway, we're talking just about the Ammonite REPL, and we're going to install it in just a few seconds by using a command similar to this. Before we do that, however, I always try to understand where the naming comes from for the things that I'm learning, and I googled Ammonite, and Wikipedia showed me that Ammonite redirects to this page, which is about Ammonoidea. I like to pronounce it Ammonoidea for some stupid reason. In any case, so ammonites are a group of extinct marine mollusk animals in the subclass Ammonoidea of the class blah blah blah. These mollusks, commonly referred to as ammonites, are more closely related to living colloids, blah blah blah. Basically, things that don't have a shell. Okay, but some of them actually do have a shell. Okay, so the name ammonite over here, from which the scientific term is derived, was inspired by the spiral shape of their fossilized shells, which somewhat resemble tightly coiled rams and horns. So what I'm getting from this is basically ammonites are something small, right? So it's just a small tool, and also sometimes they have a shell. So shell, like a bash shell, right? But the majority of this article was actually not that helpful. So let's go and try to install it. Now, as with most tools these days, there are multiple ways to install something. If you're on Mac, you can actually use brew. So you just say brew install Ammonite-REPL. But on Linux, and you could actually probably do this on a Mac, we would actually need to download the binary ourselves, and we need to put it into some folder which is on the path. So we're going to put it into the user local bin folder, which is on the path. Okay, so if I go and try to echo the path, we're going to see that this user local, where is it? User local bin folder. Okay, so now this is a sudo folder, right? So this is a root folder, so we need to do sudo, right? And so we're going to use the curl command -l, and we're going to insert the URL over here in just a second. But by the end, we're going to say please output whatever comes out into user local bin, and we're going to call it AMM. Okay, now the URL that I'm going to insert over here is https://github.com. Lee, and his name is Howie. This is how you spell it. Howie with a H like this. Lee, Howie. Okay, and we go to Ammonite releases, and we're going to download / the latest version is 1.69 / it's for Scala 2.13, so the same as with the regular Scala REPL. You need to download the binary for your Scala version. So if you're using 2.12, download 2.12. This is going to be 2.13, and then we need to do -1.69 again. Okay, like this. So let's go enter my password, and it should download it real quick. It's just 30 megabytes, as you can see over here. Just 33 megabytes shows, so it should just take just a few seconds, and there we go. Okay, now because it's on the path, we can just go and say AMM, and it should just start it, and there we go. This is the Ammonite REPL right here. The first thing that it shows you is that it's version 1.68. It uses the Scala version 2.13, Java version 1.8, because that's what I have installed. And if you like Ammonite, please support our development at www.patreon.com/HowieLee. Okay, I'm going to say actually a few things about this by the end of this video. Now, as I just said, if you want a different version, just install it on top of it, or if you want to uninstall Ammonite completely, just remove this binary, right? So this is just this one file called AMM, and now it's in the user local bin folder. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to make my terminal smaller, because what Ammonite is actually doing is it understands the width of your terminal, and based on that, it renders things differently. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a tiny case class. So we're going to have final case class person, and as you can already see, you know, the distinction between the regular REPL and Ammonite is that you have syntax highlighting. Okay, so I'm going to have name, which is going to be a string, going to have age, which is going to be an int, and we're going to have favorite fruits. Whoops, favorite fruits. Wow, why is it doing that? Hold up, let me maximize it. Whoa. Okay, that's okay. I press Control C and then Control L. Okay, this is not what I wanted to have. All right, so let's do a final case class. Person, name, string, age, int, favorite, fruits, which is a sequence of strings like that. Okay, define class person. Nice. So what we can do now is we can go and, so I'm going to introduce an error. So I'm going to pretend like I'm creating a person, but I'm actually going to say foo. Okay, so I'm going to press enter, and notice that we have multi-line editing, right? So I can go up, I can go down, I can start changing things like this, okay? Like this, like that, okay? So I'm going to have that, and I'm going to say age is, and by the way, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark it with shift, okay? And I'm going to press tab, and it will indent it, and with shift tab, it goes back like this, and you can do this with multiple lines, right? So even like this, right? Tab, which is really wonderful, right? So you have almost like an editor experience. So we have age 32, and we're going to have favorite fruits. Come on, fruits. Fruits equals a sequence of I like mangoes, and I like bananas, and I like watermelons, and a bunch of other things. All right, so now I'm going to press enter. I'm going to press enter over here. Now notice that again, like this is multi-line editing, right? So if my cursor is over here and I press enter, this will actually not submit the command as it would do in a regular, you know, console application like the REPL, right? So I actually have to go down and I have to press enter over here. Now, as I already said, I introduced an error, and I made it on purpose because I want to show you that if you press up in the regular Scala REPL, it will show you, you know, just this one line, and then you press line again, it will show you this line, and so on. But over here, if I press up, it will actually give me the entire command, and I can actually go up and just say, hey, this is actually a person. What I meant was a person. And again, you know, I pressed enter, but I actually should press enter over here. Right, so now it created this person, and what I wanted to show you before is if I minimize it again, like if I make it smaller, if I create yet another person, it will be rendered differently, as you can see. So it injected a break line over here and over here, over here, and over here, which is kind of cool. And it has a bunch of pretty printing things out of the box. Okay, let me maximize it again, and also let me press Control L like this. I want to say a few more things about multi-line editing, and in general, like when you're in Bash, there are a bunch of shortcuts that you can use. Like I've shown you already Shift, but look, my cursor is after E, so if I press Control A, it will actually go to the beginning of the line, and if I press Control E, it will go to the end of the line. And I don't know many of these shortcuts, but if you do some of them, go and try try them out, and I'm sure that some of them will work. And another cool thing is that if I press Control C, it will just abort this command instead of jumping out of the Ammonite REPL, right? So I'm still in the Ammonite REPL. I can still do 1 + 2. Like one of those things is, for example, jumping between words, right? So if I go up over here, I hold Control and I press left, it jumps between words, right? So like it would do in a regular editor, or also just in a regular Bash shell. And to be fair, the regular Scala REPL has some of these features as well, like the ones that I showed you. Control A, Control E, they will work, and jumping between words, I believe it should work as well. Okay, let me press Control C again to kill this command, and press Control L. This also works in Scala REPL, right? So it just scrolls down. So if I scroll up, it's still the stuff is still there. Okay, let me press Control L again. It just scrolls down. Now another thing that is really cool is history. So let's say that you have 3 variables, like val A equals 1, val B equals 2, and val C equals 3. Let's say that you wanted to search for something that had letter B in it. So you just type in B, and then you press up, and it will find it. And you can edit it before you submit it, and then once you're done, you can actually submit it. Now you need to be careful with that, because if you go up a few times, so we're arrived at the person. So if I position my cursor in the beginning of the line over here, and if I press up, if I'm right, it should actually start looking through the history. See, it did that. It went to foo. If I go up like this, it went to the other thing. Okay, so yeah, just be careful with where your cursor is before you start, before you press up, or before you press enter. Another cool thing is block editing. So for example, over here I have created 3 variables, and I pressed enter after each one of them. But what you can do is you can have a block, and again, multi-line editing, don't forget that. So you can have inside of this block, you can have your val a equals 1, val b equals 2, and the entire block will produce a plus b, for example, right? So now if I press enter, so it will not create a variable for a and a variable for b and then assign a plus b to some result. What it will do is it will evaluate this whole block at once, and it will just do the last thing, right? So it will do that. And as you can see, what I just said was completely wrong. It actually created all of these expressions at once. What I wanted to show you is that you can also escape that again. So if you have yet another block over here, then it will do just that, just what I said before. I just confused it a little bit. Okay, so it will do 1, 2, and it will add them together. It will create the 3, but it will not create the bindings for a and the b. It is also possible to do some undo and redo commands. I was trying to figure out how to actually do it, but I actually couldn't. Consider checking out the documentation for Ammonite, which is basically at ammonite.io, and you have the features. And basically this is what I did in preparation of this video. I just scrolled down over here. I played around with these things. This is just a getting starting video, right? So as you can see, like, I'm also not very proficient with Ammonite. So anyway, one of the things in there is undo and redo, and I'm going to try to find it real quick. So there's history, there's block, here, undo and redo. And I didn't really understand how it works. Like, sometimes if you're on Unix, you should use Alt instead of Control. And I tried some of them. It actually didn't really work for me. In any case, let's continue with the video. One of the most amazing things about Ammonite is that how easy it is to include libraries that are published to Maven or Bintray or anywhere else. So I found a library to play around with, which is over here. It's on GitHub as sparse-tag-trail, and apparently this is a trail. Trail is a roundtable library for Scala. So you basically create routes, like for example HTTP routes. I've never played with this library. I just I just looked for some tiny utility library that I can play around with. Okay. So if we wanted to include it, so we would go to Maven Central. Like, usually if you have like SBT, for example, you would go and click on the version, and you would scroll down to SBT, and you would do something like that. Like, usually you would do 2% symbols over here, so that SBT inserts the 213 for you, right? So what you can do in Ammonite is you can go and you can say import, right? And then you do $-iv, and by the way, you have auto completion, right? So you can press tab, and it should actually autocomplete that. And I don't understand why it doesn't do that. Usually it does. All right, so we import Ivy, and notice that it actually has auto completion over here as well. So if I start typing tag.spa, right? Notice that I have the closed what is it called? Backtick. Okay, so now if I press tab over here, it actually downloaded a few things and says, hey, did you mean text sparse? And I'm like, well, yeah, that was the only thing. That was the only thing over there. Okay, so now I can do colon, which is similar to percentage from SBT. Now I can close the backtick again, and I can press tab. It will download a few things, and it says, okay, these are your options. Well, in this case, I want actually trail. Okay, so let's do tab again. Well, okay, so there's trail, and there's trail for Scala.js, which is really awesome. Okay, so we're going to take trail, and the version is going to be, hold up, like this. Yeah, there's a version 0.2.1. So as you can see, it auto-completed the 0.2.1. Okay, so we actually want to import that, and we can also right away also import, the actual trail package, right? So I'm gonna go down, go back over here. This is what GitHub wanted over here in the sign example, import trail. Okay, so it does like both of these at once. I can copy this. I can go over there. So I'm going to press enter. So now it downloaded the library, and also it did the import trail. So now I can paste the example from GitHub, and it should just magically work. And as you can see, everything compiled. There are no compilation issues. And as I said, these columns, they're similar to the percentages symbols from SPT. So if you're using Scala.js, you would need to have a third one over here. Okay. Now the next example is actually straight from the Ammonite documentation, is that you could also install the SPT plugins. All right. So over here we had, not this one. Here we had this import. So what you can actually do over here, you can say .plugin. I'm sorry, $plugin dot. Okay, and now what we can have here is a plugin. Okay, so let's remove everything. Let's actually remove that as well. Now again, this example is straight from the website. So we're going to have type level, kind projector, and the version is going to be 0.10.3. Okay, so now if we have a trait which has higher kinds like this, Okay, like that. Okay, now this would have worked without the plugin. Okay, but this one would not. So if we have some type, I'm gonna call it TC either str TC. This is an either string or, and this is where the question marks comes in from the Kind Projector plugin, which we, by the way, used in the Monad series. Okay, so now I'm going to press enter, and all of a sudden it works, right? Without the plugin, it actually wouldn't have worked. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that, but it is also possible to add, custom authentication mechanisms for fetching of the libraries, and also add, custom resolvers and so on. But you probably don't need that as a, as part of the getting started video. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the source command, which is actually a kind of cool command. So you can type in source, and then you can give it as a parameter some piece of code, like for example over here, root user. So let me go here. I'm going to right click, copy. I'm going to paste that. Notice that it doesn't have any quotes of any sort. So I do this, and it actually finds the source code for this, and it opens this. In this case, it opens this in less. Okay, so in fact, I believe that you could also do source and then viewer. I might be wrong actually, but it should work. Vim like this. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so it doesn't work for source, but it works for the next command. By the way, one quick thing about source. I installed OpenJDK, and I believe OpenJDK doesn't come with source, so you need to do some extra things for the source code for the standard library. So for me, the source command didn't work. So if I do something like source new java util dot array list like this. This example is straight from the documentation, but now it says that it can't find anything. And the same thing for something from the Scala library, like one like this. It also can't find the source code, and I actually don't really understand why. Probably I don't have it installed, but yeah, so your mileage may vary. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with the show command. So if you have, for example, a huge list like this, so we're going to have list fill, and we're going to say 100,000, and let's fill it with java.time.localDateTime. Now like this. So as you can see, the output is trimmed, but if you want to see the entire output, you would do something like show, and you pass in the huge, and you see the entire thing like this. What you can also do is you can browse. So you can browse this huge output like this, and again, it will just drop you into less, and you can go up and down, and you can queue, and if you know any less commands, you can use them. Also, you can change the viewer. Like this time I'm pretty confident that this should work. So if you pass in Vim like this, then it should open. This huge output was Vim. All right, so for example, I can press I, and now I'm in the insert mode. You can edit stuff here, and you can actually, write, but actually I have no idea where it's going to write this to. So it writes this into some, temp folder, blah blah blah. So it actually doesn't the changes are not reflected into your actual variable huge. Okay, so escape :q. Right, this is Vim. Now we're back over here. One of the last things that I'm going to show you is a super cool command called desugar. Right, so what it will do is it will go into the typer phase of the compiler and give you the output. Okay, so if we have, for example, a for comprehension, which, as we already know, desugars to calls of map, flat map, and so on. So if we have it over here like this, let me go here, let's do that. As you can see, I'm not actually as good in editing inside of the terminal. I don't have all the shortcuts memorized, even though I know a few of them. Okay, so if we have a chessboard over here, so we have the characters and we have the numbers, which are coming from 1 to 8, then we can yield character and like this. Okay, something like this. Okay, so we're just sugaring this for comprehension, and Ammonite will look at it and says, okay, so the first thing that is happening is that there's an implicit conversion from character to something like a character wrapper, and that character wrapper has a method called to, which accepts a character, and that thing, whatever it is, it has a method called flatmap, which it gets passed in the method that takes a character, and so on and so on and so on. We already know how the for comprehension are desugared, and if you don't know that, I already have videos about that, and we stumbled on them so many times already. Now, as we have seen in the previous video, Bloop is using Ammonite, and in the previous video we created a Hello World project, and now I'm going to go into the dev folder where we have this Hello World project. It's called Playground, and I'm just going to open it with Visual Studio Code. And what we will see is it opens in full screen. We just have a build properties file which specifies the SBT version, and we have the in the build we have just the Scala version, and we're turning off the SBT server, and we have a small main method over here which has the you know, the whatever package, and inside of it, it has the animal and it has the cat. So what I want to show you is how to install Ammonite inside of SPT. So if you if you really like Ammonite, how you can use it with SPT. Now Ammonite is just a Scala application, so it has a regular main method. I actually copy pasted this from the documentation, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to add as a library dependency this thing. So it's coming from Howie. It's called Ammonite. It's version 169, and we're only adding it into the test scope. Let me create more space. Whoop, what's up? What was that? This is what I want. And I don't want this. Okay, so we're adding it just to the test scope, and we're adding it to the exact Scala version that we're using, right? So not just to 13 as it is usually done, but also to the exact version, to the full cross version. I'm also going to copy paste the next thing, which will just add a source generator into the test scope. And what it will do is it will just define a task. So it will go into the source managed folder under the test scope, and it will create a file called amm.scala, and inside of that file it will put an object amm which extends app, and inside of it all it will do is it will go to Ammonite, which comes from this library, to the main method, and it will pass along the arguments. Okay, and also the documentation mentions that if you want the source command to work, you also need to copy paste even more stuff like this. Okay, I don't 100% understand this, but basically it goes in there and it goes into artifact classifiers and whatever. Essentially just copy paste that and it should work. Okay, so what we can do now is we can go to the console and we can go inside of SPT, and it will take just a few seconds to start it. So now we go over here and we do test compile. It will generate this file, this amm.scala file, into target scala to 13 source task amm.scala, right? So it just generates this file. Inside of it we should see this, right? So if we go in there, this is all that is inside. So basically there is a main method in the test scope. Okay, so now it's downloading a bunch of stuff that it needs for Ammonite. And by the way, we're still using the version 128 of SPT, and with version 130 it will actually use Corsair for downloading of the dependencies, and this whole thing will be much faster. All right, there we go. So now we can do some like test run main, and we can do tab, and it will autocomplete to Ammonite. Right now we have only one main method, so we can just do just test run. Okay, and it will just start Ammonite over here, and we should be able to access our object from here. So we should be able to say whatever dot animal dot, and we actually have auto completion. So as you can see, we have cat over there, right? It works. And by the way, for some reason, I have no idea why, but if I don't have this package, then let me close it again. Let me go over here. Then for some reason, even though auto completion works, it can't access it. So if I type in animal, right, and it will actually, so it actually sees it. Type dot tab, it actually sees, sees cat, but then I press enter, and for some reason it can't find it. So what I ended up doing is just putting it into the package like this, and now in just a few seconds when it starts, we should be able to do whatever. Whoa, SPT probably died because it didn't have space. Control C, come on, die. There we go. SPT, I should probably give it more memory because it basically didn't do anything and it already died. There we go. Last command was test run. So let's start Ammonite like this. And then we can do whatever dot animal dot cat, and now it works. Now, I'm sure there are many other cool features, and maybe the documentation doesn't highlight all of them, but this should be enough for a getting starting videos. And I'm sort of also getting tired of recording 1 hour long videos, and maybe you guys are also tired of watching them. Now, before I leave, I just want to mention a few things. First of all, as you have seen, you can also use the Ammonite shell, right? So as in this video, we concentrated only on the Ammonite REPL, which is just basically a better Scala REPL, but you can also use Ammonite shell, which is technically a different product, and you can replace the entire shell with it if you want. And secondly, Ammonite, as well as many other projects, are maintained by this one guy, Howie, and he has a Patreon page, and you can go and support him. And he's not paying me anything for saying this. It's just that I know that he has a full-time job, and he created a bunch of he has like his entire own ecosystem in Scala with a bunch of like small utility tools, and they're super useful. He's also very active in the Scala.js world, and what I like about his libraries is that they're super easy to get started with, and super simple and super just convenient, you know, because Scala is usually known for big guns, you know, like everything is type safe, everything is concurrent, everything is functional, or at least immutable, and you know, it's all fine and dandy, but you know, it has a very steep learning curve, and it makes Scala look like a very complicated language. And I really like what he's doing. Like, so he takes, for example, like recently I saw he grabbed a Python library for making for an HTTP client, and he just ported it to Scala, and it's super simple. I believe there's nothing in parallel there, and I believe, you know, some things are actually mutable. Yeah, he created a JSON library which is also, you know, mutable, but it's like super easy to understand. Super, you know, it's for simple things. It's really perfect for learning. So you know, go and check it out, and if you want to, you know, support him. In any case, that's all I got for you today. Finally, this was not a 1 hour long video. Take Ammonite for a spin. It's been Vlad, devinside.com. Don't forget to like this video if you did. Subscribe if you want to improve the developer inside you. And if you find my videos valuable, consider supporting me on Patreon. And most importantly, take care.